Hello, learners. How are you all? I hope you are doing well. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Learn to Explore. I hope you are enjoying our classes, liking our content. So, guys, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to us. And to get the latest updates, click on the bell icon. And in case you want to download the PDF of class, you can join our Telegram channel. Link is given in the description below. So let's begin with the class 12 Sociology Indian Society book. We have already started its third chapter, which is Social Institutions, Continuity and Change. So let's take a quick revision of the first part that we have already covered in the last class. So we will take a just quick revision. In case you want the full explanation, please go back to the playlist. Link is given in the description below and watch the full videos on chapter 1, chapter 2 and the first part of this chapter 3. So without wasting any more time, let's begin with the chapter. Let's begin with a quick revision. This chapter has focused on the three important institutions of Indian society, namely caste, tribe, and family. We had started with the caste and caste system. Caste is an institution uniquely associated with the Indian subcontinent. While social arrangements producing similar effects have been existing in other parts of the world, the exact form has not been found elsewhere. So, the caste is something which is unique to the roots of Indian society and it is found nowhere else in the world other than India. Although it is an institution characteristic of Hindu society. Caste has also spread it to the major non-Hindu communities in the Indian subcontinent. The term is derived from Portuguese word casta, which means pure breed. Means the caste is a group or a community of people. Caste is known as jati in the Indian context. It is a generic term referring to species or kinds of anything, while varna literally means color. In the Indian society, there we have studied about the fourfold division of society into four varnas of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And there are the fifth group also, which is known as outcaste or the Panchama, which contains the foreigners, slaves, conquered people, and others. This precise relationship between Varna and Jati has been the subject of much speculation and debate among many scholars. So, this is the basic difference between caste and Varna. Caste is a closed system while Varna is an open system. Caste has a very rigid structure while Varna is not. There are more than 3000 castes and subcastes while only 4 Varnas are present in society. So here are some features given in the caste society. I have explained everything in the last class. You can watch it to see the full explanation. Then moving forward, colonialism and caste. Scholars have agreed that all major social institutions and especially the institution of caste underwent major changes during the colonial period. In fact, some scholars argue that what we know today as caste is more a product of colonialism than of ancient Indian tradition. Not all of the changes brought about were intended or deliberate. Okay, तो जो caste है, some scholars argue uh, that what we know today as a caste is a product of colonies. As you know that India was the colony of Britain earlier, so caste is a product of the colonialism that India had faced in the earlier times. The 1901 census under the direction of Herbert Risley was particularly important as it sought to collect information on the social hierarchy of caste, what it does, how it has affected our country, people, etc., and what British got to know about from it, what decisions they have taken on the basis of this, and the land settlement systems introduced by British, etc. I have covered in detail in the last class. I really suggest you to go back and watch the first video, then come to this video. Then moving forward, the Government of India Act 1935 passed, which gave legal recognition to the list or schedule of caste and tribes marked out for special treatment by the state. This is how the terms scheduled tribes and scheduled caste came into being. Okay, so there had constitutional provisions. A particular schedule provided for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Then in the present, during freedom struggle, everyone came together, including the lower caste people. The fight for freedom, the movement of nationalism was fought not only by a particular class, but the all caste people were included there. Even the lower caste, the so-called lower caste like Shudras, Untouchables, Harijans, etc. They were also part of our freedom struggle. Many people fought for their upliftment and made it part of the national movement. The people who fought for these people, for Dalits, are mainly Mahatma Gandhi, B.R. Ambedkar, Jyotiba Phule, etc. Gandhi's views on was that Harijans should not be ill-treated, which includes the removal of untouchability and other social evils. This should be included in the national movement. This was the demand of Mahatma Gandhi. He wants everyone to be treated equally, and Harijans should not be discriminated just on the basis of their caste. He made this as a matter. Issue he made this issue as a matter of concern in the national movement. He asked for the upliftment of Harijans, and even when Harijans were uplifted, the rights and superiority of the Brahmins will remain. In the contemporary India, we had the rules, we had the constitution provisions to not discriminate with anyone on the basis of caste. Like we have abolition of untouchability under Article 17 of the Constitution. Also, Constitution provides reservation to the people of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in jobs, educational institutions, and at other places. In urban areas, industries were encouraged and job opportunities were given to people irrespective of the caste. So this is how we are moving towards the equality. Okay, so everything in the detail is given in the last class. So we have done till here. Now let's moving forward to the advantages of this system. After the implementation of these constitutional provisions, the policy affirmative actions for the scheduled caste for bringing them to the upper margin of society to uplift their status in the society, these system was adopted and constitutional provisions were made. So what are the advantages of these constitutional provisions? Let's look at it. Now people belonging to scheduled castes and tribes are able to live a better standard of life. They are having better standard of living. They have improved social status. Okay, so these are the advantages. The other advantages are the gap between upper caste and lower caste is significantly reduced. Even some Shudras have got the ownership of land. But as every rose has thorns, this too had some disadvantage or limitations. The culture gets eroded. Like in the Sanskritization, we got to know Sanskritization is something copying the upper caste. So people belonging to the tribe or the scheduled caste have started imitating the Brahmins. So their culture is getting eroded over time. They automatically become inferior because they copy them. Copying practices such as dowry has declined the position of women among these groups. It is a positional change and not a structural change. People look down to people of their own caste to copying others. Okay. So these are the limitations of these constitutional provisions made to upliftment of the scheduled caste or the so-called Dalits in society. But these policy have some limitations which are as follows. We have already done this. Okay. After independence, there was zamindari system where the Zamidar's land was sold off to marginal small land or landless farmers due to the Land Sealing Act. So there was a act passed after independence, the Land Sealing Act, where Zamidar's land was sold off and distributed among marginal or small farmers or the landless farmers. The zamindars have sold off their land to the worker in the industries. So at that time, to save their land and money, what zamindars did? They sold off their land to the work in the industries. Thus, the middleman acquired the land, so they had social, political, and economic power. These people comprised of the dominant caste. So it is how dominant caste emerged in the people in the villages of India, where earlier the land ownership was held with the zamindars and later with these middlemen or the medium-sized landowners. Caste in the modern times means in the today times. How is the what is the picture of caste in modern times? Let's look at it. I hope you are able to understand. In case you have any doubt, any query, any suggestion, or anything to ask, even from the other topic and in the last classes, you can ask here. I would like to answer, and please feel free to ask. Also, in case you like my content, please do let me know in the comment section. It will really motivating. Okay, thank you. So let's moving forward. In the modern times, endogamy or the practice of marrying within the caste remained largely unaffected by modernization and change. So today, even most marriages take place within the caste boundaries. Although there are more intercaste marriages, while some boundaries may have become more flexible or porous, the borders between groups of castes of similar socioeconomic status are still heavily patrolled. For example, intercaste marriages within the upper caste. Example, Brahmin, Banya, Rajput may be more likely now than before, but marriage between an upper caste and backward or scheduled caste person is remain rare even today. In the democratic politics, there has been deeply conditioned by the caste. While its functioning has become more and more complex and hard to predict, it cannot be denied that caste remains central to the electoral politics. Caste is used for the political purposes. Since the 1980s, we have seen the emergence of explicitly caste-based political parties. Situation got very complicated as parties competed with each other in utilizing the same kind of caste calculus. So they are using caste as an issue to fight to election. For in the election, they are politicizing the caste. Sociologists and social anthropologists coined many new concepts to try and understand the processes of change. Perhaps the most common of these are Sanskritization and dominant caste, both contributed by the M.N. Srinivas. Sanskritization refers to a process whereby members of a caste, usually middle or lower, attempt to raise their own social status by adopting the ritual and practices being performed by the upper caste or the caste of higher status. While dominant caste is a term used to refer to those castes which had a large population and were granted land rights by the partial land reforms effected after independence. Dominant caste is not any particular caste, but according to the geographical area, the caste which had a large population and owned the resources, who had the land ownership, and they are large in the population, they become the dominant caste of the area, of that particular area. One of the most significant yet paradoxical changes in the caste system in the contemporary India is that it has tended to become invisible for the upper caste, upper middle, and upper classes. For these groups who have benefited the most from the developmental policies of the post colonial era, the upper middle class or the urban middle class are the ones who have affected goodly in the good manner by these policies of not discriminating. Okay, the development policies of post-colonial era. Caste has appeared to decline in significance precisely. In particular, the upper caste elite were able to benefit from subsidized public education, especially professional education in science, technology, medicine, and management. At the same time, they are also able to take the advantage of expansion of state sector jobs in the early decades after independence. So this is how the people belonging to upper caste and elite groups had benefited from the policies. In this initial period, their lead over the rest of the society in terms of education has ensured that they did not face any serious competition. Although for the so-called scheduled caste and tribes and the backward caste, the opposite has happened. The policies are mainly meant to focus on the people of belonging to scheduled castes and tribes or the other backward classes. But in reality, they are benefiting the upper middle class or the elite class of the society. For, for the people belonging to the backward classes, the scheduled caste or the tribes, the so-called depressed class, the people who are really in a need, caste has become all too visible. Indeed, their caste has tended to eclipse the other dimensions of their identities because they have no inherited educational and social capital. So, this has come out as a disadvantage for these groups. They cannot afford to abandon their caste identity, for it is one of the few collective assets they have. Moreover, they continue to suffer from discrimination of various kinds. The policies of reservation and other forms of protective discrimination instituted by the state in response to political pressure serve as their lifelines. But using this lifeline tends to make their caste the all important and often the only aspect of their identity that the world recognizes. The people belonging to these groups have loosened their identities, their several other identities, and they are just being recognized by their caste. So, this is a big loss for them. The juxtaposition of these two groups, a seemingly casteless upper caste group and an apparently caste defined lower caste group, is one of the central aspects of the institution of caste in the present. At present, the upper caste group has become the casteless, and the caste defined lower caste group is one of the central aspects of the institution of caste in the present. Okay, then moving to the tribal communities. I hope you are able to understand what I am trying to convey you here. That the institution of caste has become disadvantaged for the people belonging to the lower caste or the lower class because they have loosened their several other identities and just are they are just recognized as based on their caste because they do not have any inherited social or educational kind of uh, social or what you say social or educational lead to compete with the others. Okay, tribal communities. Tribe is a modern term for communities that are very old, being among the oldest inhabitants of the subcontinent. Tribes in India have generally been defined in terms of what they were not. Tribes were communities that did not practice a religion with a written text, like Hindus did follow something called Ramayana or Mahabharata. There is a Bible for the Christians, etc. But tribes are the communities which do not follow any written text and do not practice any religion based on written text, did not have a state or political form of the normal kind. They did not have sharp class divisions, and most important, they did not have caste and were neither Hindus nor the peasants. So, this is how the tribes of India are here. Okay, then let's moving forward to the classification of tribal societies. It is done on the basis of permanent traits, including region, language, physical characteristics, and ecological habits. So these are the bases on which tribes are classified. So permanent traits include geographical and territorial system. So geography on the basis of geography, there we have divided the tribes into the following groups. The first is north and northeast zone, where the most population of tribe of India lives. Highest concentration of tribe is found in this area, north and northeast zone of the India. Example are where these tribes are found in the Sikkim, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir tribes which are found are Nagas, Khasis, Bodos, and Kemis. In the central zone comprises of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Bihar, Odisha tribes, uh, and tribes include our Santals, Gonds, and Bhils. So these are the tribes there. Okay. Then in the next group, the southern zone, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh consist of tribes like Todas, Kotas, and Chenchlius. In the western zone, the states covering Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra are consisted with the tribes of Santhal, Gonds, Bhils, Gujars, and Riva. Then in the next group, West Bengal and Odisha, they do not have much population of the tribes. Then the other basis of classification for tribe is language. There are four groups based on the language for the tribes. The first is Aryans, consisted of North Indians. Punjabi, Hindi, and Sanskrit is their language. Dravidians are Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Tamil, South Indian, Chenchalus, and Koitas. Austric are influenced from Austria, and they are consisted of Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and the north belt of the India tribes. Then the next group is Tibeto-Burman. Nagas, Bodos, and northeastern tribes are part of these. They use this language, Tibeto-Burman. The language is no longer in the purest form due to the intermingling of tribes. Then the next basis of classification is size. The total population of tribes amounts to about 8.2% of population of India, or about 84 million persons according to the 2001 census. It is the latest, not the latest data we have, but in the NCERT book this data is provided, so we are referring to it only. Okay, so guys, for the notes you can rely on these. I have included all the important points from the NCERT from your exam perspective. So you can rely on these notes, and to download PDF, join our Telegram channel. Link is given in the description below. Okay. So 1 million tribal peoples are belonging to Bodos, Khasis, and Mundas, whereas 4 million people among tribes are belonging to the tribes of Gonds, Santhals, and Bhils. So this consisted of the larger group. So guys, this is all about today. In the next class, we are going to start with acquired traits. In case you have any doubt, you can ask. And in the next class, we will be doing the acquired traits, tribe, the career of a concept, and then kinship, etc. I hope I am able to solve some of your doubts, queries, and you are enjoying our classes. So please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And do let me know in the comment section about your views. So from here, we'll continue in the next class. Till then, keep revising, keep studying. Stay tuned. Thank you.